road. Anything higher than 15 miles per hour is speeding. But this black Oldsmobile was barreling back and forth over the Dyke Bridge on Friday, the day of the accident. I'm Jess Cannell, and welcome to my channel. This is a bonus episode. Right now we are working through Maureen Callahan's book, Ask Not. It is about the Kennedys and the women they destroyed. And we just went through the episode with Mary Jo Kopechne, where Ted Kennedy and she got into a car crash. But I have a special thing to share with you. I went into my local thrift store and I looked down on a shelf and I saw this, which was a 1984 printing of Life magazine about all the president's children. And so we very well may look at this when we do another JFK Jr. episode. But on the back, in the same package, was this, which is the Life episode about Teddy Kennedy and the Chappaquiddick episode. So I'm going to unwrap it with you and we're going to talk about it. The main thing I want to do for this is it teases here, it says grave questions about his midnight car accident. And so I kind of just thought it would be interesting to look together to see what questions were they looking for at that time. We know the questions we have now. We know the information we have now, but this is a week or two out from the accident. I actually did not compare the dates. So when we open this up, we will get the dates and see. Okay, yeah, it is very delicate. I can already tell the paper is wanting to fall apart. So I'm going to try to be very careful with this. We'll set the 1984 aside, but here is the fateful turn for Ted Kennedy. It says, this is a photo of Ted Kennedy last May in Hyannisport. So just opening it up, the front cover is falling apart. Incident at Dyke Bridge on page 16. This would be fascinating just to read as it is. So they do have a picture of Mary Jo Kopechne right here with her name. And it says the pressures of Ted Kennedy's career and character come to a crossroad. The incident at the Dyke. They give a little map here so that people can understand. One thing you notice from this map is that there is a ferry in the direction of Edgartown. It is the opposite of the direction that they went, which was on the Dyke Road. And so that in and of itself is suspect. Did he go that way because he was drunk? Did he go that way because he was trying to avoid someone seeing them? And then he went off the Dyke Road. So instead of staying on the main road to go to the ferry, he actually took a sharp turn to the right and ended up going off this Dyke Road. Now, this is the opening section of this article. It says that Dyke Bridge out there on the end of Chappaquiddick, every islander knows is a danger to man. Too narrow, angled all wrong to the dirt road, humped up too high in the middle. No railings, no warning, just all of a sudden, planks under your tires. Something was bound to happen there someday. So, even this article is seeming to make the case that this was a dangerous spot. People living out on Chappie take things maybe even slower than most islanders, but especially Dyke Road. Anything higher than 15 miles per hour is speeding. But this black Oldsmobile was barreling back and forth over the Dyke Bridge on Friday, the day of the accident. 2, maybe 3 times during the day. Different drivers, nobody recognized. It was going faster than any beach buggy ever did. It tore through again about 11:30 that night, heading toward the beach. But that can't have been the last time if, as Deputy Sheriff Christopher S. Look Jr. says, he saw it go off Main Street, down Dyke Road near 1 o'clock in the morning. He even tried to talk to the driver, who wouldn't talk to him. Anyhow, Sylvia, Mrs. Pierre Malm's 21-year-old daughter, lives in Dyke House. Can't be more than 100 yards from the bridge. Saw it at 11:30 and told her mother. So next morning, when 2 kids came out and told Mrs. Malm that there was a car wheel sticking upside down out. Wait, are we missing a page? Well, that section I'm missing a page for, so we're going to skip ahead to the next interesting section. This section is already taking us to the police station. It says the senator was already there, wanted to talk to him. Senator Kennedy wrote out a statement for the chief with the legal help of his friend Paul Markham. On July 18th at approximately 11:15 p.m., end quote, and then the article says, now how does that jibe with when Sheriff Look says he's seen him? So this is interesting. Even the verbiage is interesting. We would not have that written in a magazine now, but it's saying, we've already been told that this sheriff says he saw the car going off of Main Street onto the Dyke Road at 1 a.m., near 1 o'clock in the morning is what he said. His statement that he wrote out for the chief says 11:15 p.m. Here's his quote continuing. I was driving my car on Main Street, Chappaquiddick, to get the ferry back to Edgartown. I was unfamiliar with the road. End quote. Then the magazine inserts, but hasn't he been coming to the island all his grown life? He's been on Chappie. You've been on Chappie once, you know there's only the one hot top road, meaning the one paved road. You're either on it, headed for the ferry, or you're on dirt, headed somewhere else. Then it goes back to Ted Kennedy's quotes. And turned right onto Dyke Road instead of bearing hard left on Main Street. Hard left? Main Street's got the only lights and a white line swinging right around the curve, right down the middle of it. You gotta be mighty confused. You gotta hunt to turn wrong down Dyke Road. And it washboards enough to let you know you aren't on any hot top. You're going to the beach, not no ferry that way. What an interesting way of writing. Isn't this quaint? Okay. After proceeding, and this is all written, by the way, by Brock Brower. And this is continuing with his statement. After proceeding for approximately half a mile on Dyke Road, I descended a hill. Back to Life magazine's comments. How can you call that little rise a hill? Back to his statement. And came upon a narrow bridge. The car went off the side of the bridge. Now Life says, bound to happen to somebody that much. You can see how he went straight off. That long, wide scratch, what do you bet that was the differential? Back to his quote. There was one passenger in the car with me, one Miss Mary. Chief Arena said he left a blank. He didn't know how to spell Mary Jo Kopechne's last name. Back to the statement. A former secretary of my brother, Senator Robert Kennedy. The car turned over and sank into the water and landed with the roof resting on the bottom. I attempted to open the door and the window of the car, but I had no recollection of how I got out of the car. I came to the surface and repeatedly dove down to the car in an attempt to see if the passenger was still in the car. There are questions now. With that tide, it was starting to come in, at least 3 knots. Would have pushed him right away from there. I was unsuccessful in the attempt. Andy's got that bad back too. So they are just knocking him. Everything that he says in this statement, they say, really that time? The sheriff says something different. Really? You didn't know where you were going? You've been coming here your whole life. Really? You didn't know where you were? Because it was the only one. You got off of the paved road and you went on to the dirt road. Again and again, they are knocking him openly in this article, which is just fascinating because you think about the political power and even the deference and respect that people would have for the Kennedy family. After all 3 Kennedy boys had been lost. He's the last one. And so you could see how, especially the media, might have given him deference. And yet this is so dismissive and even mocking him. It's very interesting. I was exhausted and in a state of shock. I recall walking back to where my friends were eating. Had to walk right by the Dyke house 100 yards away and the David Smith house. Lights on in both. Dave Smith's son, Tom, he's 4, won't sleep without a light on. Telephones both places. Telephones in houses the whole 1.25 miles he had to go back to reach the Lawrence house. So on this map, again, I'll just keep putting it up. On this map, you can see the Dyke house and you can see the Lawrence house and how far he had to walk. And he's saying all along this way, there were houses and there were at least two that had their lights on and would have been available. Both places had telephones. He says, then they sure disappeared off this island fast. So they're saying, look, you hightailed it to that house and you hightailed it off the island. Back to his statement. There was a car parked in front of the cottage and I climbed into the back seat. I then asked for someone to bring me back to Edgartown. I remember walking around for a period of time and then going back to my hotel room. Well, they ask, how did he get across to his room at the Shiretown Inn? Last ferry is at midnight. And Jared Grant ran the last trip over, tied up at Edgartown. Who got him a boat? So he is claiming he just drove right back. That's what happened. He got in the back seat and went. Now, this is his first statement. Later, he contradicts that by saying he immediately got those young men together and they made a valiant attempt to save Mary Jo. But he does not write this apparently in his first statement. When I fully realized what had happened this morning, I immediately contacted the police. 7 hours later, they add. So this is just open contempt. They are line by line destroying the statement. The very first statement he gave, they are ripping it to shreds. Now, this all happened on July 18th. This is printed August 1st. So we are less than 2 weeks from the time that it happened. So they are still in the heat of this event, especially when you consider that the men had landed on the moon. That was probably their top printing of the week before. We could go back and look. But this week, they say the fateful turn, meaning that turn in the road, for Ted Kennedy. So they are not just asking questions, they are openly putting him to shame that his statement is nonsense. 7-8 hours after it happened, soon after 8 in the morning, Dick Hewitt's running the first ferry then, and he and Stevie Ewing first see Kennedy go back across from Edgartown to Chappie with 2 other men. So there's no ferry driver who will vouch for him the night before, but they have a ferry driver who says first ferry, he's going across with 2 men. The 3 men hang around the ferry shack in Chappie for maybe 20 minutes. Then Dick and Stevie go up to them and mention the accident. I just heard about it, one of them said. And that's when they pick right back up and take off back on the ferry to Edgartown. So nobody knows why they went to Chappie that morning or why they hung around the shack. But we know why they went back to Edgartown, to report the accident to the police. So this is interesting. They're saying that perhaps this was the first that Teddy told his friends about it, which tracks. This is very fascinating, actually, because this is not the picture we're presented even at any point by Ted. Chief Arena finally released the statement that Saturday afternoon, 2 more hours after the 1 hour he had promised Kennedy that he had held off until after he heard from him again from Hyannisport. Right after its release, Kennedy's lawyer friend Markham did call, asked Arena not to release the statement, but it was too late. The charge is leaving the scene of an accident. After first request of a hearing, Kennedy changed his mind and pleaded guilty. He received a suspended sentence of 2 months and automatically lost his driver's license for 6 months. And the island talk is still out there on Dyke Bridge. It could happen to anybody. It could have happened to you or me. We're all human. So the islanders are all saying, well, it was a rough road, could have happened to anybody. The trouble is, as Life points out, he's been there his whole adult life. So either he is drunk as a skunk and has no clue even where he is or what he's doing, or he's being completely reckless and racing to get away from being seen and maybe caught with a woman, although the evidence showed that she had no sperm. So I don't know, there's thoughts. A few photos in here that are interesting. This is his wife, Joan. It shows her. I mean, what a fashion plate. She looks like so beautiful. Of course, he's not interested in her at this point. Whether or not he was interested in Mary Jo, we know that he has his, what is it, Helga or something? Hulda? I don't know. He has a mistress who he says is the love of his life. We can look it up here in our book. He made 17 calls that night. Remember, before this ferry ride, before anything, he made 17 calls. And one of them, so he made it to different legal friends, advisors, his fixer, who was his brother-in-law, and Helga Wagner, whom friends described as the love of Ted's life. So that's what this book says. So if he had not slept with Mary Jo that night, we don't really know why he was booking it out of there, but the islanders seem to have compassion for him because it was a rough road. Next thing we have Ted Kennedy chasing a football at Hickory Hill. So I'll try to turn that where you can see it. There's Ted Kennedy, young Ted Kennedy. He's also looming in this picture. There's Ted Kennedy. Kind of fateful picture for them to have taken, and these are just floorboards on a porch, but it does look like he's looking out on water. Kind of creepy. What a great photo for the front. Oh, here he is with his, oh, I love this so much, with his stupid neck brace. Do you see that? Good grief. What a showy, absurd man. He's there with his neck brace. Ridiculous. It says, wearing a neck brace, Ted Kennedy attends Mary Jo Kopechne's funeral in Plymouth, Pennsylvania. Okay, so they kind of go into a little bit of history of like his relationship with Bobby, some of his campaigning history. They're giving a lot of political history, pages and pages of history without any real reference to the story. We have two family photos here, Rose and Ted, so that's his mother. And we have the brothers. Let's see, there they are. There's the brothers. All together at the White House in 1962. So this photo of the three brothers, of them just grinning wildly and looking so athletic and dashing, that was about a year before Kennedy was assassinated. Well, then they have, this is fascinating. Oh, what neat photos. They have these, this is totally different. This is about the moon landing. Look at these photos of people being all emotional and darling as they consider that we've just landed on the moon. Look at her face. Isn't that fascinating? This is a piece of history right here. After setting it down, I was showing my husband, and I just want to let you guys know that these photos of the family that was watching the moon descent, these were the Armstrongs. This is Stephen and Viola Armstrong, and that's why this woman who's just in utter shock is Neil Armstrong's mother. Look at her. She's just marveling. So I just thought that was kind of important. As I looked through, I was just showing you guys. I didn't expect to come across that. But later when I was showing my husband, I thought, how neat that that's the Armstrongs. Anyway, this is a fascinating magazine just in and of itself. Just amazing to me. So, you know, I'd like to know from you guys, how do you feel knowing that they already had all of those questions less than 2 weeks after the accident? What did you think of these photos and the history? What did you think of kind of the quaint language of the article? I thought it was really sweet. So I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode. I know it's not the same as reading the book together, but in a way I hope it is. It's kind of uncovering history together. And I'll tell you, I really loved the sarcasm that they used. I feel like that's the perfect use of kind of mockery and a cynical view of like, you have got to be kidding me. This is nonsense, and we can all tell it's nonsense. I thought their tone was really quite appropriate given how bald-faced his lies were. So let me know what you think. Come back soon for the next episode of Ask Not. I'm so excited to go through each of these stories with you. The next one we are doing, we just previewed her here, is Joan Bennett Kennedy. So Ted's other blonde is who we're going to be going through next. Something I wanted to talk to you guys about since we have this little bonus episode is I'm starting to think through what book and what kind of book we might want to read next. So I have books about the JFK assassination. Another one, I don't know if you guys have enough interest in this story or not. We've already gone through one episode of Chappaquiddick. We've gone through the Life magazine, but I did today buy the whole book. It's a whole thick book of Chappaquiddick. So if you guys are interested in really doing a deep dive into Chappaquiddick, that is a topic that I would actually be really fascinated to go through. But I'm sure there is so much packed into, and this is the subtitle for this says Chappaquiddick, Power, Privilege, and the Ted Kennedy Cover-Up. So sounds fascinating. You guys can let me know about that. I have other ideas too, but this is my invitation to you to leave in the comments if you have a book idea. I'm so glad you joined me for this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.